Hey, Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rachel. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Well, why don't we start off, just tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, so I am a life coach. I started my business 3.5 years ago, and I focus on helping women create lives where they have it all. So I call it like an anything but average life, creating a life that just blows their mind, and helping women like get out of their own way and remove limiting beliefs in order to do that. Because to me, the biggest thing holding people back from having everything they want is themselves.
Yep.
So yeah, right? We're all in our own way. So yeah, just helping women create a life that they just absolutely love. And I built it online, using Instagram, using social media. And yeah, so I can't believe I started it only 3.5 years ago. It kind of blows my mind. But yeah.
Time flies. So how did you get into this?
So you and I think started both in a similar way in business. So I actually originally started in Beachbody, and I had found network marketing.
You were at Beachbody? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
you didn't know that?
No. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh, that's hilarious. So yeah, I got out of college after volleyball and was like searching for what I was meant to do with my life. I had like 7 corporate jobs, and I just kept feeling like something was missing. And then I got linked up with network marketing, Beachbody, and that got me into personal development. And so I started building that business. It was going really well, but I just still felt like I was looking for something more for myself. So I randomly went to a networking event for my corporate job, and I met this girl who said she was a life coach, and I was like, what the heck is a life coach? Like, but I met her for coffee anyway. I just was like networking with people. And after having like one conversation with her, I just like knew I was like needed to hire her. I knew we had to work together. I knew that she could help me create what I really wanted. So I walked away from that lunch and I was like, I'm doing it. Like I'm hiring her. So about 3 months into that coaching relationship, my perspective and my mindset had changed so drastically that I like just like hit me. I was like, this is what I'm meant to do with my life. So that's when I like up leveled with her and started really like coaching and learning from the intention of wanting to serve others in that same way. And then I like launched my business, replaced my corporate salary in 6 months of doing that. And then I was just kind of like off and on my way.
That's pretty cool. So how would someone, know that they would need a life coach, or who needs a life coach?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. I feel like the terminology is so, it's like saying a teacher or like a coach or a mentor. There's so many different kinds. There's so many different purposes. Everybody has a different style. So this is obviously going to be from my own perspective. But I think the biggest thing is when you start to realize you're recreating like similar results or the same problems over and over and over again in your life. Like that was a big realization for me. I was like, okay, I work really hard. I'm taking lots of action. I'm trying, like, I've changed my circumstances, my jobs, my boyfriends. Like, I'm like, but yet I still am like stuck in the same spot. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that's one of the biggest commonalities with the people that I serve is they are just like, okay, I know I want more. I know more is possible for me, but I find myself recreating. It's like, I call it, what's it called? Groundhog Day, like recreating the same problems and the same challenges no matter what I'm changing. And then I think some of the other things would be like realizing that like you're having all this fear or all this doubt or all this confusion. And again, my life coaching is heavily on mindset. So all of that has to do with your mind. But yeah, if you just start to notice like confusion's a really tricky one because it feels very real. We're like, oh, I'm very confused. When in reality, confusion is just like a safety like mechanism. So yeah, confusion, fear, doubt, like not taking action on the things you really want because you're afraid of what people are going to think. Or really you just want to like up level. Like, there's so much more out there for you, but you don't know how to do it. You don't know where to go. You don't know like what path to take.
Got it. So for someone who's struggling with fear, like fear of taking action or fear of putting themselves out there, what would you do to help them?
Yeah, so I help them identify what they're actually afraid of. So our brains are literally wired to have fear because we think like our mind thinks it's going to keep us alive. And so a lot of times we don't actually like bring to the surface the real fear, and we just kind of let it like stay there and just drive forward everything that we're doing. And so one of the biggest things is helping them recognize, like, what are you actually afraid of? And I call it the difference between purposeful fear and perspective fear, right? Most of the time it's perspective fear, because lucky for all of us, we don't really have to on a daily basis think about like we might actually die. It's just our brain making up stuff to keep us safe. So it's really identify like what are you actually afraid of? And then like the one option is making peace with it, right? Like, how could you be okay if this thing actually happened? Like, how can you make peace with worst case scenario? If you post on social media and somebody doesn't like it, like you're not going to die, you're going to be okay, and helping them kind of like really just accept that. And then I think the other side of it is creating a new story of what's possible. Again, our mind loves to be like, what's going to go wrong? How is this going to be bad? And it's like, yeah, your Aunt Sue might not like what you have to say, but you might have somebody like message you who says this post or this content changed my life, or somebody might like, you might not find out for 2 years later, but they might be like, that one post like helped pull me out of this like negative mindset. And so I always ask my clients and the people that I serve to say, well, what's the amazing possibility that could come from this action instead of all of the terrible bad things that could happen? And that can really help us get into motion. Like for me, when I first started my business, I was so afraid to post on social media. And I remember just thinking, one person somewhere who probably won't even like it, probably won't even comment, may not even tell me that this impacted them, but I really believe one person is going to get some sort of value from what I have to say. And that really just helped me keep going. And that helps a lot of my clients keep going with whatever area of their life.
That perspective is huge. I remember my aunt had some nasty things to say on some of my posts when I was first starting my business.
You have an aunt too, like I do have
totally. And I was just like, I gotta delete this. This is really. But I'm like, she's not my ideal client. She's not the person I'm like meant to serve. And all the positive like comments and messages, and I've had people come up to me at like the grocery store and everything, like completely random. But that completely like makes up for it, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
What are some other? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what are some other limiting beliefs that people have?
Oh my gosh. I'm selfish or bad for wanting what I want.
I think that's a big one for moms, because they're like,
100%.
oh my gosh, I've heard this so many times of like, I can't invest in this program or my business because my family comes first. But it's like they put this warped story in their mind because, hello, once you grow your business, you'll be able to provide so much more for your family.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm always having to teach women moms, of course. But women in general too, but moms especially, that it's the greatest gift they can give to their kids and themselves and their family to make themselves a priority and invest in themselves. So yeah, totally. So that's a big one. Another thought a lot of people have is like, why me? Like, why am I, like, how am I special? Or why would I be the one who creates this amazing life or gets this amazing result? Some of the limiting beliefs are like, I don't know how. Like, that's a big one. Like, I don't know.
It's like this story over and over again. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this.
Yes. I call it confusion land. And I feel like it's one of the most challenging ones to get out of, because we actually, like, some of the other limiting beliefs we can see and we're like, okay, I see that this is like a limiting belief. But that one, I find a lot of people think it's like real. So they're like, I actually don't know how to do this though, or I don't know where to go, or I'm confused. But the reality is that confusion is always just there, like protecting you from potential failure, right? It's like, okay, if I'm confused, then there's no chance of me failing. And so that's just like a sneaky way that our mind protects us. So I always ask people in that scenario, if you're listening and you get stuck in confusion, I always say, like, if you were guaranteed to succeed and that there was like a solution and there was 10 solutions, Like what available solutions or options are there? What could you do or what would you do? And I find that kind of breaks down the barrier and helps people identify some paths, because otherwise if you believe that, like, you're just going to stay stuck.
It's so funny when you like keep telling yourself that. So I learned so much from Tony Robbins, and I've been to a bunch of his seminars, and he gives the example of like, you're sitting at the table and your mom asks you to go get the salt, and you're like, I don't know where the salt is. And then you go to the cupboard and you open it and you're like, I don't know where the salt is. And you like literally are telling yourself that story. And then you're like, Mom, I can't see where it is. And she comes and she's like, it's right in front of your face. Like, it's right here.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I do that with my husband. I'm like the guy, like, I'm like, where is this thing? But totally. Yeah. Because there's like, my thought is, and I've built this, right? I used to be confused too, but my thought is that there's always a way. Like, there's always a way. There's always a solution. Like, there's a way to find the salt. There's like, you can look in 25 different places. You could go to the store and get the salt. So, yeah, I find having that belief really helps people, like, cause of course you're not gonna, if you don't think you know where the salt is, you're not gonna look for it. You're not gonna find it. You're not gonna see it when it's right in front of your face.
Yeah. What's like a big struggle that you've had that you've overcome, like getting resourceful? Because it sounds like you just have that resourceful mindset of like, I'm always going to find a way. So what's something that was like really big for you where you just found a way?
Great question. So when I first hired my first coach and it was like really, I mean, I had invested in like Beachbody before, but like it was the first like big investment that I was making in myself. And I was barely making ends meet back then. So it wasn't like today. It was like, I don't actually have the money. I don't know where it's going to come from kind of deal. So I was just so committed to it though, that I got creative. I think I might've borrowed money at some point. I was selling Beachbody. So I was like, okay, how can I find ways to like sell more things, like, and make more offers to pay for this? I dipped into some of my like very minimum savings account. I was willing to like sell clothes, like sell stuff. Because the thought I had, one, again, I was so committed, and that I think is required in order to be resourceful. You have to be like, there's no option, like I'm doing this. Yep. And that helps you create resourcefulness. But I also think the other thing for me was realizing that if I don't figure out how to do this now, then I'll never like be the person who can find a way and figure this out. So that always really helped me get resourceful. But yeah, I mean, even the silliest stuff, like my husband probably gets so annoyed with me, because even something like, I remember one time my car, like the doors were locked. It was like literally across town. We were staying somewhere, I forget, and I was like so committed. I was like, there is a way to get the car unlocked because someone needed to get something out of it. And I just like, I came up, I was like, okay, let's try this. Let's call the BMW. And we end up getting it unlocked. And he's like, how does this happen? Like, and I'm like, it's just because when you are fully committed to finding a way, like there are always solutions to make it happen.
I like that. What would you say to someone who's struggling with imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, that's such a big one. My thought is first that the reason you even have it is like a sign that you're aware and that you're probably the perfect person to do the work that you want to offer the world. And then the other thing is looking for evidence that it's not true. So when I first wanted to be a coach, my brain did all the things. It was like, what do you know? Like, how are you going to be a coach? But something that I did that really helped me was I was like, okay, well, where is there evidence that I could be a great coach? And like, how many things do I have to offer the world? And so I literally took time to and wrote in my journal page after page, like, what do I have to offer? What have I learned that I can help other people with? And after writing for 5 pages, it was like the evidence was so glaringly obvious that my brain couldn't convince itself that it was an imposter. And of course, I believe at every level, we all get imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, I go back to that. I'm like, okay, and for anyone, where is there evidence that you're the perfect person to offer this? Even if it's 2 things, right? Lean on that and use that to fuel you forward.
what would you say to someone who's like afraid to charge what they're actually worth?
Oh gosh, I'm actually speaking about this at an event because I have so many, I have such a big perspective on it. My thought is a couple things. I read this in The Prosperous Coach, but it applies to any.
What book is it?
It's called The Prosperous Coach.
Okay.
I think he wrote it. It's really good. But he says your price is a filter for your ideal client. So I love that because I think it's so true. And the thought I've always had is people pay different amounts for everything in the world. Like there are people that pay $500,000 for coaching. There are people who pay $1 for coaching. There are people who pay $10, right? It's the same. I like to think about like cars, right? Like there are cars that are $500,000 and then there's cars that are $10,000. So I think it's also realizing that like, okay, there are people in the world who, all types of people who will pay different amounts for different things. So then it kind of brings your brain to a place where it's like, okay, these options are all available. There's people out there. And then, you know, what do I actually want to charge? What do I feel like the value that I'm bringing is worth? And then looking at why. So it's like finding why is this worth this to my ideal client? Why is like this program, this offer, this valuable? And something that I go back to with a lot of, I work with a lot of like people who are coaches or own businesses like that. I'm like, okay, how can you see that helping someone with confidence or anything is going to change the trajectory of their life? Like not just this one instance, but like, how is that worth $5,000 or $1,000 to them and to how that's going to impact the rest of their life? So I think it's just really seeing like, how is that valuable in their life? And then I think the other thing is looking at why don't you think it's worth that? What's blocking you from believing that and really proving those wrong? Because the worst thing people can do, even for their ideal clients, is charge a lesser price because they think someone will pay it or because they think like it'll make more sense for them or whatever it is, because you don't feel like valued and it's not like a good energy exchange. And then it's like you're putting a limit on your client too. You're saying like, I don't believe you're resourceful enough to find a way to make this investment, or that you're capable of having an abundance mindset to this capacity. So also realizing that like, I have the thought, it's a gift. It's a gift to stretch people, like have clients who stretch themselves to make an investment. Like that's going to help them grow in itself.
Totally. And I find the clients that are more invested end up showing up more and getting better results. So like I have my group program Activate. It's not a cheap program by any means. You know, like if I charged $47 for it, I'd have a lot of people in that program. They wouldn't get the results that I wanted them to have.
Yeah.
Like we charge what we charge for a reason. And we already have students that show up and they're like making back their investment. They're making thousands of dollars and we literally just started like
so good. Yeah. So I think back to when I first made my first investment, there were moments that I was freaked out, but it helped me grow into a different person, into a different version of myself, which is the point of investing in this type of work in the first place.
Yeah. What would you say to someone that like they made that big investment, but then they freaked out afterwards and they're like, I want a refund, or they have buyer's remorse because like, you know, it like scares them.
Yeah. So I think it's realizing that this is exactly what you signed up for. Like you asked for a bigger life. You asked for bigger results. So of course your brain is going to freak out. Like you've made a commitment. Like to me, I'm like, this is a natural part. Like this is supposed to happen. This is your opportunity to grow. And so I think the biggest thing is showing up for that lesson, right? Like just asking for a refund or asking to get out is the easy way out. It's what your brain normally does. And if you continue to do what your brain normally does, you will keep creating the same results. So it's like, it's really seeing this is an opportunity to grow. Like what's coming up? Why am I afraid? Like what would I have to believe to be all in on this and really bridge the gap? And then also get, you know, whatever type of support you've invested in, like ask for help. I think sometimes people hide that. Like they're like, oh no, I'm having the thought that I want a refund or I'm freaking out, and they like hide it. And then they like they send an email and like disappear off the face of the earth, instead of like showing up and being like, no, this is an opportunity for Rachel to help me, or Lindsay to help me through this. Nothing's gone wrong here. And really looking at it as a learning opportunity.
How would you coach that person? So if someone like paid for it and then freaked out and wanted a refund, or they like disappeared off the face of the earth, how would you handle that situation?
So there's, I can only help somebody who wants to be helped first. So, there's a point where I would energetically just be like, if they're not showing up for help, I'm not sure that there's anything else that I can do here. But I would ask, if they were showing up for the help, I would ask them like, why? Like, what's coming up for them in that moment? Are they afraid they're not going to make their money back? Are they afraid that they're not like worthy of that type of investment? Money and investing is such a magnifier to what's actually below the surface. It's never actually about the money. It's about what are all the fears and doubts coming up. So I would just dig in and be like, what's coming up for you? Why do you feel this way? What are you afraid of? And work on bridging the gap of what would you have to believe instead to move forward and to stay committed? Or what would you have to think about yourself? One of the biggest things, the reason why people, maybe have that moment or don't even make the investment in the first place, is because they don't actually believe they are capable of getting results.
Yep.
And that's the number one thing that keeps people from getting results. So of course it's going to show up in that moment and helping them bridge that gap. Like, how could you see that you are the type of person who's going to get results? Where is there evidence of that? Like, how are you on your way to creating the results that you want and helping them through that process?
Got it. So one of my students actually shared that she has a fear of failure and also a fear of success. How would you handle that?
Yes, I have clients with that as well. So I would look at what they're afraid of on the failure side, right? Like what does it mean if you fail? What do you make it mean about you? And like reframe that story. So a lot of times people think, failure means it's the end, like, or that they're bad people or that there's something wrong with them. So I would recreate the story and say, like, how could failure be the most amazing thing, right? Like, how could it mean something amazing about you, like that you're willing to take risks, or that you're willing to fail, or that you're on your way to success? Because every successful person has failures, and that it doesn't mean anything about you. So help them create like a positive story about failure, and realize that, a lot of times people feel like failure is like finite, like you fail and like you're a failure, instead of it just being like, no, this is literally like in sports, right? We both play volleyball. It's like, you're going to fail a billion times. Like, it's like a part of getting better. And so really celebrating that side of it. And then I think on the flip side with success is seeing that, like, how they're going to be supported when they create success, or how it's probably not going to happen. Like, what's the likelihood of whatever you're afraid of when you do hit success? Like, what's the likelihood that that's actually going to happen? Or how can you also create a story on the positive side, on the success side, that supports you, right? A lot of people are afraid that they're going to like lose friends, or people that they love if they become successful.
Yeah.
And so that does happen sometimes. Like, we don't need to like lie to ourselves. Like, that's a potential thing. So it's realizing that a positive story might be, the right people will support me. The right people will want to be around me. So if I lose people that I love, I can recognize that maybe they were never my people in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I would like work on, with her, anyone, creating new stories surrounding failure and success that help support them in showing up for both.
That's good. So we both played volleyball at Sports Performance, which is so like random and so funny that, we get to have this conversation now. But do you think there's anything that you learned from, being at a high level athlete that you've brought into your business, or like mindset, or just anything?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much.
Everything.
Like, I look back, I look back and I laugh, and I'm like, I don't know if I could go through that today. Like,
No. My body's had enough. Like,
well, all of us entrepreneurs would be like, I'm just gonna go. Like, I don't want to be here. But oh my gosh, so many things. Like, my husband and I joke that just with sports, we've been training for entrepreneurship our whole lives without even realizing it. I would say some of the biggest things are the resourcefulness. I know it's not like it seems, financially it isn't the same thing with volleyball or any sports, but it was just like realizing that there's always a way.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way to keep the ball off the floor. There's always a way to win. Like you never know when you can come back. So I think that just trained my mind for a really long time that like there's always, like where there's a will, there's a way. I think some of the other things would be like handling failure. Like I realize with a lot of the women that I coach who never played sports or didn't have that experience that they've never really maybe they have never had to fail really. And when you play a sport, I mean,
you're going to lose. It's going to happen.
Every other pass, every other serve, every other hit, like you mess up. So I think just learning how to handle it and not make it mean anything and get back out there and do it again really, really helped. And then I just also think like the work ethic and being willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, I don't know if there's a better club in the country to learn that than
there's
sports
not.
performance.
There's really not. Like I've coached volleyball at clubs down here in Florida, and like I just can't handle it. I can't coach. I don't think I could coach anywhere else. Like they're just like lazy and oh my gosh. I'm like, why aren't you jumping to your full potential? How is that okay? Why are you here? Like,
oh my gosh.
I can't even. I'll get really mad if I start talking about that.
I totally get it. I coached volleyball like 1 year and I was like, nope, not doing that.
I could only do it at sports performance where they have that standard of excellence. Like you show up and you do the work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm so grateful for it. I wouldn't be the same without that experience.
Totally. Sure. What's one of the best books you've read?
Oh my gosh. I love Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back. Because I think of my athletic experience, I tend to be, which is why it's funny that I teach so much mindset. I tend to be like a very like action taker, like I'm in control, and in a lot of ways it serves me. But on the flip side, it hasn't really helped me build a lot of trust in anything outside of me but myself. Mm-hmm. And so that book really helped me kind of find that harmony between doing my part, but then also trusting that something out there has my back and also is supporting me and showing up with the same energy that I am. I also love The Millionaire Mind. I forget who wrote it, but it's really good as well. Yeah, I love reading.
Me too. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Oh gosh. I think as you grow bigger and bigger in business, it gets really easy to get caught up in like hundreds of thousands of lives and like wanting to make that impact. And that's really important to me. Like I want to when I leave the planet, like I want to have left something that changed people's lives for the better. But when I really think about it, I think about even like just one person's life being different because of the work that I do. And having them like look back and be like, okay, if I didn't have the work Lindsey offered, like my life wouldn't be the same. To me, like that is everything.
I love that. I had Liz Bohannon on the podcast. She's the founder of Seiko Designs. Mm-hmm. And in her book, she talks about dreaming small instead of dreaming big. And like her small dream was like, I just want to help one person in Uganda. And that was like her. God. Yeah. And I think it like totally reframes it instead of being like, I have to impact 1 million people of like just that one person when they come up to you and give you a hug of like, you changed my life. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah, it does. That's been something for me as I've continued to grow that I've really had to like change my perspective on, because you don't actually feel like you can see the impact when you're impacting lots of people, but it's in a different way. I have to really get granular when I'm like launching something and thinking about when I'm working on like, having hundreds of people enroll, I have to get really granular and like celebrating the fact that every single one person made a leap and stretched themselves and grew in this moment and really connect myself back to it. Otherwise it just feels like I'm not as connected to it.
Definitely. Where can we connect with you?
Yeah. So Instagram is like my jam. It's like my favorite spot. So my handle is @LindseyMango_. And then my website is lindseymangocoaching.com.
Cool. Well, Lindsey, you are awesome. I'm so happy we got to catch up and have this conversation. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.